Welcome to ModiMakes.
What's good, everybody? My name is Modi, this is ModiMakes, and today I felt it's been too long since I've created one of my classic Blue Meanie canvas paintings, and I've been missing my slightly creepy yet cute character designs very much. So I decided to throw a ton of them into this painting here today. I had this initial idea for a background that I really liked, that I really wanted to build upon, of a pink sphere on top of a pink background. Y'all know I love my pink, enough said there. Pulling this off is fairly easy. The initial step is just going to be laying down all of your shading for that pink sphere in the middle on your canvas first. And that just consists of 3 different colors: a darker pink, a mid-tone pink, and a white highlight. After that, because my canvas is 12 by 12 and it's the perfect size for this, I'm just gonna throw down a record on top of it and then spray paint all the exposed area with that mid-tone pink color. This gives it a nice harmony because the background color is the same color as the mid-tone pink on the sphere, and the only thing separating them is the white highlight and the darker pink shadow. Once I've completed this background painting, it's time to bring it into the studio and transfer over what is admittedly a pretty complicated sketch. It's not that there's a ton more going on in this painting than my general paintings, but there is going to be some complicated perspective work that I have to work out. So in order to transfer over my digital sketch as accurately as possible, I'm going to start with a piece of newsprint paper. I'm going to take this newsprint paper and draw on a circle the same size as a record, like the one I used for the background painting. I'm then going to cut out this circle that I've drawn from the record using an X-Acto knife, and from there I'm going to put on a doodle grid onto that circular piece of newsprint paper. Now I'm going to take a picture of this doodle grid that I've created and line it up with the sketch that I have on my iPad. Using this doodle grid, I can then transfer over the sketch that I've created digitally as accurately as possible onto this newsprint, making sure to line up all the lines I have drawn digitally with the lines on my doodle grid. Then once I have my sketch transferred over to my doodle grid, I can do the same trick of using a record as a stencil to cut out a similar sized circle in my transfer paper. With this circle cut out from the transfer paper, I can then tape down this transfer paper and this newsprint paper, lining it up as accurately as possible to the center of the canvas and the center of that sphere that I have painted on in the background. I can then go over all of my line work that I have on the newsprint paper with a ballpoint pen to transfer it over onto my canvas. Now, I used a gray transfer paper for this one, which admittedly was not a great idea. I should have used a black one because the sketch didn't transfer over very visibly, as I'm sure y'all are seeing right now. So unfortunately, the next step that I have to do is go in and re-sketch all those lines to make them more visible for myself. Fortunately enough, this wasn't a terrible waste of time because I actually had more elements coming outside of the sphere that I wanted to add in the sketch anyways, and I just had to add this little bit of extra work onto that step. Now that I finally have my sketch transferred over and it's visible, I can go into the all-important step of laying down my initial line work with a black Posca pen. This is generally a step where you guys start to actually be able to see what I'm going for, because I know that the sketch lines can be hard to see on the camera. And now you can finally see where that perspective work that I'm talking about comes in, because I've essentially laid out a series of squares onto this sphere, but I want it to look 3D, so I have to accurately match what the perspective would look like if I had those squares on a large sphere like this. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to turn all of these squares into windows that all of these different characters and elements are looking out of, looking into, and interacting with. Once I've finished up laying down all my initial line work, it's time to go back in and lay down all the pure black areas to emphasize the shadows for these different characters. all that initial black line work laid out, I really wanted to emphasize that idea of these all being windows from a building that has an interior. So I decided to give them that idea of having light coming out of it. And to have that displayed, I decided to fill in all of these squares with a nice yellow to indicate that classic warm incandescent light glow that we would have always had before you had LEDs and things like that. And then to show that the light is coming from a ceiling in the interior above, I went in with a lighter yellow and added some nice stippling highlights coming down from that top part of the window's opening. The fills for this can be a little bit complicated, honestly, because the areas of color are quite small in these. I knew that was going to be an issue when I was creating the sketch, so I wanted to make each of these characters fairly simplistic to make sure that there wasn't any hyper detailed elements that would get lost in translation. With that, it's now time to go into the general coloring of these characters, and I wanted to make sure each one has their own little personality while still standing out from everything in the background. So I chose colors that made sure that they still had contrast while alluding to their personalities or their general makeup, what the creature is made out of, and of course using lots of shades of blue for the blue meanies, as always. With all those colors laid in and looking tasty, it's just a matter of going back over all of my line work again to make sure that it's as clear as possible. With that complete, there's just a couple little extra detail elements to throw in, such as a little bit of hatch shading, a little bit of patterning, and a little bit of tooth design on some of the characters. There wasn't a ton of detail work I could do on these. Like I said before, their characters are fairly small and there's a lot of them, so I needed to keep them relatively simple. So I made sure just to add minimal detail elements here to not muddy up the design. Well, there you have it, my peoples. The tenement is complete, and I don't really know with this one. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. It's a little bit strange. It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse in terms of what I've normally created. Obviously, it has a ton of character design, which I'm used to, but I've never really tried something like this before, and I'm just not really sure how to feel about it right now. I think it's good in some ways. I think in some other ways it could have been done better, but it was just kind of a little test run on doing some of this perspective work and really working in this idea that I just had floating around in my head at the beginning and figuring out how to communicate that as best as possible. But let me know what you guys thought of the piece. I would really love to hear. Let me know down in the comments below, because I'm very, very interested to see what other people who weren't involved in the creation of it would think about seeing this piece for the first time. And let me know if you have any questions about this video or any other video I've made. As always, I'll be reading through all the comments and responding to them personally. And you know, if you like the video, go ahead and give me a like. That would be amazing. And if you like me, you like the channel, and you want to help support me, the number one thing that you can do is to subscribe. I really couldn't thank you enough if you did. It means the world to me. And with all that out of the way, and without further ado, let's get into those final shots, shall we?